Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. You're going to learn a technique today to nail what you offer and how people find it, all in under 30 days. Now, some wonder where I find the books or the speakers that come on the show. The simple answer is they're requests. If you want to hear about some topic or from a certain guest, or you have feedback on something that you heard here, hit me up at Funnel Reboot on the main social platforms, or if you'd like, you can leave listener feedback at 613-703-7073, and I will be glad to respond to you through the show. So let's get to today's show. The best plan is not the most correct plan. It is not the one that required barricading your door and working day and night for a week to write out. No, the best plan is the one that you stick to. This logic can apply to diets, preparing a speech, training for a competition, or keeping a New Year's resolution. And it can also be applied to one thing that is rarely fully implemented: the good old marketing plan. A great hack to overcome false starts here is to follow a program that's short enough that you see results in as little as 30 days. And that's the tactic used in today's book. Written in 2019, Action Tracking is aimed at formulating a digital marketing strategy. Its author came by her expertise here in a circuitous way. She's worked in different media, from books to television to running a technology company. And the common element was that they all centered around communicating stories and reaching and marketing to the audiences hearing them. For the last 6 years, she's been helping companies tying their digital actions through sales and marketing back to a coherent plan that is aligned with their strategy. And I want you to hear about the book that crystallizes the method that she's come to for this. But this talk isn't just about scaffolding and building your online strategy. We talk about the drawbacks of using current social channels to do this. The issue of social media's impact on mental welfare has been brought to the fore by movies like 2020's The Social Dilemma. And the platforms knew about their negative impact on audiences before we as marketers did, but now that we are aware, we can't ignore their impact. When we use sensational headlines so our messages spread further, it ups the ante for all posts to do that to please the algorithm. This degrades everyone's experiences and brings silo thinking and subjects our followers to mentally corrosive content. And this isn't the kind of internet that our guest wanted to see, so she did something about it. Her most recent incarnation is as founder of Ethical Digital, a Canadian agency that respects the voices of women and Indigenous and other minority communities. Their belief is that more inclusion in the ranks of marketing practitioners will improve the content and the use of common platforms and the experience for everyone. I can't argue with her here, and I hope that you stick around to hear this upbeat tone. Let's go hear from Katrina German. Welcome to the show, Katrina.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you, and I have a delightful read that I've done on a book that you wrote. Could you please tell me the title of the book?
Absolutely. It's called Action Tracking, Master Your Digital Marketing Strategy in Under 30 Days.
It's a mouthful there, but it is what it says. And it's meant to straddle the needs of both people who are full-fledged marketers, but it can also serve people who maybe don't have marketing in their title, but they have the weight of marketing on their shoulders, right?
Absolutely. And that was sort of the idea when I first started professionally doing my marketing services. I realized that a lot of people, either were in marketing, but maybe weren't as comfortable with digital, or they were, people who were spreading small businesses. They were people who were trying to make it happen and just weren't sure how. There was, so many options out there. So, so that was really who it was intended for is groups of people who wanted to start in digital marketing, just weren't sure where to start.
Hmm. And I think the thing that has probably, for those who maybe haven't been working as hard on content in the past couple of years, but the thing that really can make it hard to get started is knowing where you might, amidst the tons of content that's already out there, try to put content that would possibly work for your target audience. And if you don't get that started, then it's a catch 22. You'll never get the information that tells you whether or not you've actually, gravitated to the right crowd.
That's so right. And I really discovered this particularly when I was working with a lot of technology startups. A lot of them had this really incredible idea, had a really neat technology, trying to get it out there, and they're like, of course everybody's going to want this. And and so the more you try to drill down and really get clear on who exactly wants it, it's the most important step that you can do. Because you may expect that, say it's young mothers who are interested in these things, but it turns out it's actually the grandmothers who are buying or something like
Hmm.
that. There's already always so many assumptions when it comes to this, and honestly there's some fairly easy ways to be testing and figuring out your markets and using a lot of the tools that are at our disposal, and really making some magic happen and finding the exact people who are also looking for you.
Now, we can get a strategy about this, but I think that there's a trap that some people fall into with trying to make this humongous, overly complex strategy that's going to take 18 months to simply, you know, come down to what you're going to implement. You have a way of just putting a forcing function around that, right? It's right in the title of your book.
Well, and
Tell
that's
me about that.
yeah, well, that's kind of the idea. Is there's literally thousands of platforms you can be marketing on online, probably millions. I don't, maybe not millions
Yeah,
yet, but there's
we're
so
getting
many
there.
for what you can be doing. And I think that actually falls into a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they're looking at approaching this. And people kind of tend to fall into the I'm overwhelmed, I'm not going to do it, or the
Right.
I'm overwhelmed, I'm going to do it all, and it'll take that 18 months. And so in the meantime, a lot of these things, especially when you're a small business or you're just getting started, you just need to get the cash flow moving. You really need to be focusing on, building that brand and really focusing on the customer base. And so I really tried to strip away a lot of those extras so that it was really sort of like, here are just the things you want to focus on. Just these things, just go through these steps. You can do all these extra things later, but in the meantime, if you get these things right, then you're going to be in a great position and you're going to start to see results and actually measure your results, which is the important part too.
Yeah, I'll echo what you've said there. People who get into the book will notice that you do strip away a lot of things that, uh, let's be honest, there's a time and a place for, but you just come right down to the things that will, as you say, bring cash in the door. And if they can't do that, they'll at least get you onto the threshold of an order or a sales conversation to help you understand whether or not you're giving a value proposition that makes any sense to them.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's not even, just finding that target audience, which is of course very important. And several people have many, but there's lots of ways to test for that target audience and figure out who they are. But it's also that next level of what messaging is actually going to get them to take that action, thus action tracking. Because if you think about it, if you're using, I talk a lot about ads and how you can use them to do a lot of this testing fairly inexpensively. But in the meantime, you kind of test ideas against each other. You put out 10 different ads that are very similar. Everything's the same. The photo would be the same, the call to action, everything. But in the meantime, you just change that messaging at the top and you can really find out some interesting information. I often found, sometimes I'm working with other communications teams, people who have a lot of experience, and we'll actually sit down and we'll take bets and be like, okay, which of these 10 messages do you think people are going to like the most? And almost always, even though I do this constantly, we're wrong. And,
Yeah.
because you have your own mindset, you're right in the weeds, you're looking at it, it's hard to see the forest for the trees. And in the meantime, it's always going to be something like probably much more simpler, or maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more complex than you ever expected, that people are actually going to click on, that's going to actually cause them to take that action and click through to your website.
Very well put. And there's a book that did a similar thing, and I think it's probably the best known example of this. It's by Tim Ferriss, and man, we're going back at least a decade now. But the book that everybody thinks of when I say Tim Ferriss is The 4 Hour Work Week, and
Yes.
he explains right in that book that he was nowhere close to that title. That's an iconic title, right? We all instantly grasp what it means. He only got it by running a little ad experiment and trying challenger after challenger after challenger. And then somehow it just came together. And that's when he said the charts on his screen just jumped. And he knew it. That was, we're done. We can call the publisher now and get going.
Yep, this is the path forward, and that's the
Right.
beautiful part about it. And I even really like using this testing process too. Even if you're doing more traditional marketing where you're trying to put, brochures together, or, a
Right.
billboard, or something like that. This translates. This is the thing. This is the type of messaging that people are just like, "Oh, interesting." It gets them. So it can translate to all your other marketing as well, not just your digital marketing. And I think that's important to be thinking about, is that we can use these digital tools to really learn about our audiences and how to really connect with them in a way that makes sense and, again, causes them to take an action.
There is I guess there's more than one level to look at this. There's the plain old, what category is my product in? How do I describe it? If it's a off the wall kind of product, maybe innovative, as you said, new technology, what are things that can kind of get it close? But I'd like you to talk for a second about something that the book just touches on, but this has become far more important in the last 2 years. We're recording this in early 2022. And we've all been having to spend a lot more time in front of screens. We've been spending time on social networks to try and stay connected. And there is certainly an effect, if we're not aware of it, of the tone of what we are seeing and the way that it affects people emotionally. So, can you tell me just a little bit about, why we should even double down on being really conscious of our choice of words? Why does this matter?
I love that question. I'm a social impact entrepreneur. I do believe that we can make money and, change the world, but also, do good while we're doing it. And so, it's, and particularly we've all seen the volatile situation online in the last little while. There's a lot of algorithms that encourage it. There's a lot of people who have very differing opinions and different ways of expressing that are really, the internet's it's an interesting place right now.
Yeah, there's things we say, and then yeah, there's even imagery, right? And
Imagery.
we can sometimes unconsciously, there are biases with, who the subjects are in the images or how they appear, how it doesn't look anything like the reality of me in my sweatpants, right?
Absolutely. And, and body image is a huge conversation happening online.
Right.
Mental health, and we know that social media affects people's mental health. We've been doing studies at my agency, Ethical Digital, and we've been actually looking at a lot of the academic work that has gone on from around the world around how social media is actually impacting people. And spoiler alert, and we're all seeing this in the news anyway, there's absolutely a correlation between the types of between depression, anxiety, self-esteem, sleep issues, and so it's something that we all need to be conscious of. And every corporation should be looking at this. Every business, everybody who's putting out content should not only be thinking about it in terms of, okay, like, how am I trying to sell? That's a very important part of business, of course, but also, how am I making my audiences feel? How am I lifting them up, or am I making them feel worse? People don't buy from people who make them feel worse. And then to go even further, If you have, if you're tone deaf online, we are watching companies all over the place get canceled, and people
Yeah.
really calling companies out. And there's actually like a risk, a reputational risk issue that you want to be thinking about from that perspective of this is an important thing. I want to be thinking about how I'm treating people. If they were coming into my store, would I, do a funny laughy joke in their face or would I,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, there's just these different sort of approaches, and you really want to be conscious of the types of things you're putting out these days because people are online so much. There is a lot of sensitivity. There's been a lot of social movements that have happened in the last little while, helped by social media. And in
True.
the meantime, we need to be aware of those things, and we need to be engaging with them, and we need to be thinking about how am I emotionally affecting my potential customers.
Yeah, and this coin has two sides. Some of the research I've seen says that buyers today, and this applies in B2C and in B2B, that they will place more weight than they have in the past on the values of the company, and that the story behind how that company came to be, or how the present management team or the owner originating team, what they were aiming for, what their why was
Yeah.
in creating such a brand. And that brand identification absolutely has to be there for there to be a long-term, high lifetime value in the relationship between a buyer and a seller.
And I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I think it's around 86%. I'll have to confirm that. But 86% of people, if they have a choice between two equally valuable, equal products that maybe are similar in price, all that kind of stuff, they will absolutely choose the one that's doing more for social good, and or something that's in alignment with their beliefs or values. And so, actually leading with those values and having them forefront in all of our online communications, all of our regular marketing is going to be incredibly important for a lot of people and can actually be that sort of that tipping point of I'm
Right.
in alignment with this values. I am choosing this company because I believe in it. So it is
Yeah,
something
I'm,
you
I'm
actually,
glad you've said that. And nowhere from the book or from anything we're talking about would I want people to think, oh, I have to sanitize everything and water it all down. Quite the opposite.
yeah, absolutely. Putting it out there and standing for what you believe in. And there's going to be some companies who are going to really care about the environment. There's going to be others who really care about equality. There's going to be some who are just like, you know what, we're going to save you time. We're going to,
Sure.
that kind of thing. Whatever your value is, really leaning into that and telling those stories and really, again, having it consistent across all of your messages is just going to be that much more important to people, particularly now compared to other times in history.
Yeah, great point. So we always have to start somewhere when we're going into this action plan. And one of the things that I thought would be right at the beginning, because it was one of those 4 P's of marketing that they taught back in school, is place, right? I would have thought, oh, I have to, right at the beginning, pick the social network or pick the type of industry forum where my customers are going to be, and I've got to run straight towards that. You actually push that well down the list. You instead tell us we should be running some Google ads, possibly some Facebook ads, and do that for a short burst of time. Can you tell me why?
Certainly. And I love that question too, because you're absolutely right. And that question comes up all the time. But it's one of those things that for me, it's really about figuring out that messaging first. And so let's just say there's probably a good chance that your markets are on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn can be quite expensive to test on and
Yep.
get those returns. And it doesn't have the same sort of user engagement sometimes than some of the other platforms. Whereas if you look at Google, but I actually particularly push Facebook simply because it's the easiest to use. Even Google can be a bit tricky and,
Yep.
for people to learn how to do those pieces. But Facebook, they've tried and I think, gotten the closest probably of a lot of the platforms in terms of making it as easy as possible to create those ads. And also
Right.
the cost of them is very reasonable as well. You can be very
Yep.
clear with your budget when you're setting up those ads. But ultimately, a crazy majority of the population is on Facebook.
This
And
is it.
yeah, even if they're not identifying as their work selves on there, there may be a grandfather who's just on there to see, pictures of his grandkids. Facebook knows. They're following you around the internet. We all have our pixels on all these different things. They know
So for
exactly
an
what.
experiment, and
Yeah.
for
So
an
for experiment,
experiment also that is short in time,
yes.
picking a network where they measure the members in the billions,
Yes.
that's it. That's what we're doing here. Is we're just getting tons of data in quickly so that we can refine our messaging.
That's right. And so if you
Okay.
start there, even if you never plan on doing anything with Facebook, maybe it is not
Right.
your area at all, it's not going to reach your target audience in the slightest. I always find it's a great place to start because you are going to find out that information from people fairly inexpensively. And then once you have those messages, take them out to where you think your people are already, right? So especially if you're just getting started, talk to each of your, talk to your early clients, talk to the people you want to be your clients and be like, where are you getting your information? Are you getting it from LinkedIn? Are you getting it, newsletters, right? Newsletters are incredibly powerful tool. Getting in on someone else's newsletter can be just as powerful or maybe more so than doing some of the other things. And so really, instead of diving in and being like, I need to be on all the platforms, because we all know it is crazy time consuming to create that much content and monitor it and make all those things happen. So you really want to be targeted with your time and really be targeted with your messaging and your platform so that you're not wasting time. You're getting the best bang for your buck in reaching the people that you're trying to reach.
Perfect. And then we move into the part of this where many people are going to feel it's a little bit more familiar, because especially if it's a new business line or a whole new business, probably the main thing that they've been laying awake wondering about is, what's my website going to be? Um, can I get this domain? That sort of thing. Can you give me some general rules about, now that we have some messaging, how we should see the job of getting that website uh, either right from scratch or spruced up so that we're ready for some traffic?
And I think that's ultimately it. Like a website, there's so many options out there right now for a website. And so for me, I actually prefer to use things like Squarespace. I particularly like Squarespace as a platform.
Okay.
I think it looks so professional. It looks very slick and I can actually do it myself. So it gives me a lot of opportunities to change and test without engaging somebody else. And so I really like that. And WordPress, even though I know it's kind of free, there's lots of pieces. I just don't find it that intuitive to use. I prefer the
Uh-huh.
Squarespace
Well,
platform. But
and
yeah.
and just on that, like if I'm trying to maybe segregate them, would
Mhm.
you just is one of the things that you really like about Squarespace that you don't have to figure out um, where to go host it, and that you have to actually download and unpack files somewhere? You're just literally using someone's website to make your website.
Absolutely, and that's exactly it, where,
Okay.
it's easy, and if you wanna change a bunch of messaging, you can just go in and, delete it and redo it, and you can
Yeah.
create an extra page to test very simply, and, there's differences in cost. You have to pay monthly with Squarespace and to have those capabilities, but in the meantime, I really prefer the experience of it, and I love the look of it. So, a lot of people, when it comes to their website particularly, they really, it becomes this thing that people get hung up on and they'll spend a ton of time oftentimes, especially on their first website, lots of time in the content and the design. They want it to look perfect. And then they're like, okay, sweet, I'm done because it's a big job.
Right.
And then they walk away and never look at it again. And for me, that's something I'm trying to shift a lot to be like, there are just a few numbers that you should be looking at in your, always attach Google Analytics, even if you're using Squarespace, because yeah, Squarespace has their own analytics. That's great. But Google Analytics can really teach you a lot in terms of how people are experiencing your website. And I
Hmm.
even got this extra little tool that I use. If you browse in Chrome, they have a Chrome extension that is the Google Analytics Chrome extension, and I love it. It actually it's an old extension, hasn't been updated in a while. But in the meantime, anytime I go into a website of any of our clients or anybody that I have access to their Google Analytics, I can actually see where people are clicking through and
Yeah.
see like the percentage. Like, okay, everybody's interested in the contact us page. How do we turn that into a page that might convert? That sort of thing. And there's other, programs out there like Hotjar and stuff that do that type of thing. But this is a free version where you
Yeah.
pop it on, you can see it at all times, what exactly is happening in your website. And if you find that you're sending a bunch of traffic to your website and you're not getting any sales, your website's not doing its job. It should be a salesperson for your team. And so
Right.
taking a look at that and being like, okay, I've sent 1,000 people to the website. I received 3 inquiries for a meeting. Okay, now I can actually sit and do some measuring, right? One of those people will probably become a client. Is this website paying for itself? Is it being a salesperson for me? And actually looking through those numbers and knowing if I put $500 into ads, I know as I'm watching the numbers go through and how people are participating with not only my social media and clicking through, but also the website, and I see here's what comes out of the website, then I know that I'm getting a return on investment or I'm not. And if
Yeah.
I'm not getting a return on investment, it's just about tweaking and constantly looking at it until you kind of figure out the formula, until you have a website it's another salesperson, it's another staff person for you to just get what you need to get done.
Right. I love that look at it. It's as if when you're changing, let's say, the offer on the website, you're putting a new secondary offer on. It's like you've given that salesperson another question to ask.
Yes.
And, instead of them coming back for the umpteenth time saying, oh, we lost that one, you could say, well, go out again. This time, ask this thing, and we may get a different result. That's I have to say, one of the things about the list in general that it is comprised in the book is that it to me seems, for anybody who's in or around software, it looks a lot like agile development, where we're doing things, and you kind of, I guess you're saying it's by week, could be faster, could be a little slower, depends on what people want to do, but every single time you're focusing on making one part better. And you know, we may need to spend a little bit more time on that thing until we quite get it, and then we can progress to the next. But that's really the benefit, right? It's not we're going to race through this from beginning to end, and we left a whole lot of carnage behind with things that are undone. You want to get us like a little bit forward each time, right?
Yep, just step by step, go through each step, make sure it's converting, and then move on. And yeah, no, you mentioned in the book as well, but I borrow liberally. That's my background is from the technology world, and A/B testing is just how you do everything. Where you're like,
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to test all these different types of things to see if they work, to see if they're the right, features, that sort of thing. And people who are selling software are some of the best online salespeople in the world. That's their main place that they're focused on. So I liberally borrowed a lot of that concept and applied it to marketing, because I think a lot of it can be, and it does show effective. It's more or less a way of looking at how you approach marketing that
yes,
makes it easier to see what the effectiveness of it is.
yes. So I'm imagining now there are probably some folks up in the peanut gallery, and they're probably from the technology, probably the high value B2B technology end of things. And they're frowning at you and I, and they're probably saying, "Oh, but Katrina, the people that we have, they take 6 to 9 months to make a decision, and asking them to just come onto a website and in that session fill out a form for an inquiry. You got to be kidding." Um, what do you say to those people? What are some things that we can ask someone for if it's not quite time, or our product does not lend itself without a fair bit of education to pushing right for the meeting?
I love that question because we actually have a lot of clients that we work with who are exactly in that position. And, but ultimately, that marketing message and having those easy resources online ready for them to go to answer the questions of your clients before they even have those questions is going to be some of the most valuable things that you can do. And one of the issues that happens with most entrepreneurs and people who are in the marketing, again, we just get in the weeds. We're right in there. We kind of almost forget what your early questions were about the product that you're selling or whatever the case
Yeah,
is. So this is the beautiful part about this, is that you're not only just finding out things for your marketing, but you're also going to be finding out all sorts of resources, like what are people actually searching for when they are looking for your topic, and can you answer those things? You not only show up higher on Google because you're making some great SEO content, based
yeah,
on what you've learned, but you're also answering questions for people ahead of time, and again making them feel good. Most people, when they're heading into a decision that they don't really know that much about, there's a lot of emotions that come with that, and a big part of that is people just don't want to look stupid. They're going to be making a big decision probably for their company, and they want to feel good about that decision. if you know exactly what their questions are, what the types of things they're typing into Google, what are the types of things that make them click through, what type of messages they make them click through, you can put those things directly on your website and just have those people have a great experience right from the get-go and shorten your sales cycle. And just being aware, like, you want to have that conversation with them. Okay, nobody's reaching out for a meeting, they're just getting your research. What can we do instead? Maybe it's a webinar, things like that. Is there video
Right.
that needs to be on here, and you can really just keep an eye on your website, and again, the main content that you're creating, and really giving your client or potential client exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, it takes some anticipating of their questions. I know in another part of the book, I believe you talked about Google Trends and Google Keyword Planner. So we can, or Answer the Public.
Yes.
There are sites out there that will give us a chance to think about, oh, yeah, that is something people wonder. Oh, I can answer that. Right?
Yes. Oh, and it's so funny. Like, Google Keyword Planner too. I always say, if you don't do any parts of this plan except for that, that is going to already set you so much further ahead than your competitors, because it's market research. So essentially, what Google Keyword Planner is it's part of the Google Ads suite, and essentially they want to give you the terms that you're going to have the best return on. That so as you can plan your ads. So if you have a Google Ad account, you can just go in, use the tool for free, and it's the best market research you can imagine. This is the most raw information. This is when, people in the deep dark night, when they need you, here's
Yeah.
what they are typing in. And so you're going to start to learn, like, we've done some work for people in financial services, things like that. And it's so fascinating because you can absolutely see massive differences between people who are just starting out in financial services and questions like, investing for dummies, things like that,
Yep.
versus very complex financial questions that people who are more in the space are asking. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of people in the middle. So in the meantime, when we're advising those clients, we're like, let's do a double strategy. We're going to talk to sophisticated, savvy investors, and we're going to talk to people who are just getting started. They're going to be very different conversations, but we know exactly what those people are looking for because they're typing it into Google and we can see. And so, and there can be a massive difference between people searching videographers in Ottawa versus Ottawa videographers. There can be a difference of thousands of searches
Hmm.
sometimes with some of these things, and just small nuances of language. But if you know that someone in their brain is using a term and typing it in, and then you use that again in an ad, you use it again on the copy, and you're using kind of the types of terms that the majority of people are using, you're already so much further ahead than other people in your area just by using that one tool. And it could be it's a rabbit hole. Like, I can get in there and I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to go take a quick look. And like 2 hours later, I'm like, this is so interesting. You can really get pulled in. But, it's very interesting to see what people are genuinely thinking about different topics and having different questions about different products, and a lot of information to be gained from that particular tool.
It's very true. The other way that we can, I suppose, use that rich information about things that people are asking, if we get more questions than you could squeeze onto a landing page, or we want to see which question might be sitting in someone's mind. Um, I know that you advocate for at least asking for an email address. So, like, take me through what we can do with this body of answers that we need and an email address that someone's given us. What is something simple that we could start in the first 30 days that will help that crowd out?
I love that. Yeah, because if people maybe, there's a lot of reasons why people go to your website and don't buy. Maybe they don't have the money at that time. Maybe they're just researching. Maybe they might just be, tire kicking, or maybe, maybe
Right,
they're
but that
researching to
doesn't
get
mean you
better.
should abandon them.
Exactly. So in the meantime, if they don't come and directly buy, you want to have that second best opportunity, and hopefully they'll sign up for your email list. And so once you have that email list, though, it's incredibly important. We all get too many emails in a day, and so you want to stand out. But I think if you thought about your own email list, you can think of probably about 3 or 4. They're coming from companies, and you still read them every time because you're like, thank you, this is valuable for me, I am learning something, I am taking something away, or I'm getting like the best deal I can imagine. I'm so glad I'm on this email list. And so when you do this research, especially the keyword research, you're going to be pulling out a lot of trends. There's often a lot of questions that show up where people are like, how do I do this? Or things like that. So you can actually not only use those for blogs and answering that, you can actually use those for titles in your emails too. If you're setting up an email strategy that's evergreen, meaning, you're kind of, it's automated, you're going to be setting it up and just, letting it run, of course, looking at your numbers, tweaking to make sure it's good.
Yep.
But in the meantime, you really want to be giving people content they genuinely want to be receiving. And so you can sit and guess and you can do a bunch of experimentation and just throw out a bunch of content that you think people want to hear, or you can do the research and just answer their questions and, before they have them through the email strategy and have them genuinely wanting to open those emails. So once you have that email strategy set up, or if you're even doing sort of one at a time, sending them out live monthly or something like that, do pay attention to your numbers. Take a look at your click-through rates, your open rates, especially your open rates. Like, both of those are very important. And how can we be learning from those numbers to even provide better content in the future?
Yeah.
Mm.
You've helped, and you're just hinting at it, so I'm going to tease it out a little more. You've helped to make a distinction between the type of emails that we can send just on our own email client, and the proverbial newsletter has been the one that, everybody gets it at the same time, and it's the same for everyone. But you mentioned in your evergreen, that is, of course, more attuned to this person gave me their email address on, today. So let's call that day 0. So
Mhm.
on day 7, 14, 21, 28, they are now on their own track of receiving these messages. What kind of tech do I need to have? Do you have any suggestions or things that, for starting out on that, you think that people who have to do this should be aware of?
Oh, I love that. There's a lot of different platforms out there that are available. And so everybody's going to have a different, slightly different needs, that sort of thing. I've had several that I've used. I'll maybe start with one that I don't suggest, which was Infusionsoft. I thought they had an incredible sales process. If you just want to take a lesson in sales, just go through their process. They got me
Because it
good.
worked.
Oh yeah, completely. I actually ended up spending, like, I first was looking at their prices and I was just like, whoa, this is way more than I want to spend. And then I went through the sales process and I'm like, I am happy to spend more than double than this every month. And so it's like just an excellent process. I just wanted to slow clap Infusionsoft. But in the meantime, it's a very robust program. Like, there is so many different angles of it. And I'm quite comfortable with tech. I feel like I can fool around and get things figured out. I was at a loss with this. I just felt completely overwhelmed. I couldn't even get it started. I just felt like I was all over the place. So I sat on it for a few months, paying hundreds of dollars every month, and just, not even doing anything with it. Never mind seeing a return. So finally, it was a good lesson in sunk costs. I just got rid of it and started over. I actually went to Active Campaign at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that platform. But to be honest, we actually now mostly work with most of our clients and we do our own work through MailChimp.
Yep.
I know when you get to having larger audiences, you may want to move to a different platform because the price can get a little bit intense on MailChimp. But honestly, that's what they do. They've got this whole thing set up to make it very easy to send out these emails, to make sure you're compliant with the law, to make sure that everything's just set up properly and you have the choice of sending out live emails to everybody or to just certain groups of people on your list, or you have the choice of setting up automations where exactly what we were talking about before. You just set it up once and they get it every 2 weeks, kind of on day 1, day 14, all that kind of stuff. And then you can sit and look at those numbers. And again, your email should be a salesperson for you. It can be just as powerful as social media for conversions, sometimes more so. And people are already in. They like you. They're there. They're on your email list. If you're giving them great content, when they're eventually ready to buy or give a referral, they'll pick you. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the idea is, email can be just as important. It's often forgotten, particularly by small businesses, because they're like, I got my website up, social media is happening, I'm done. But it can be such a powerful, powerful tool. And so using a lot of the information that you're gaining through a lot of this research will be really helpful for you for creating the content that's really going to make people say, yes, that is awesome. And I love this company.
I'm glad you outlined that, and you're right. Every one of them call the way that they do it differently, but if you just start out with that mind shift, okay, when I had this client and let's say they bought my initial offering and they were very satisfied, and then I upsold them to another offering and that, also went well. You just need to think about those same steps, remove the person's name and call it instead a segment, give a tag that you put into the system, and you just allow it to branch and follow that same thing you did, but to do it, like you said, like a salesperson
Yeah.
who, can work while you're sleeping.
Exactly. And that's the best part. It's an automated salesperson.
That's right. No coffee breaks, no 2 weeks
Yeah.
vacation, none of that. So, just to wrap up, where do you like to see people who've gone through action tracking by the end of the 30 days? Where do you like to, if they're looking over their shoulder at where they've come from, what are some of the biggest things that you would like to see them get and that you believe the book can help them get?
Yeah. So again, kind of keeping it simple, stripping away a lot of the extra things you can do. My favorite parts of it is understanding your audience and what messages are going to motivate them. Second part is the where, and doing some testing and figuring out where you should be. Third part is how is your website how is your website performing? Is it becoming a salesperson? And then the fourth part, can you get your email strategy up and running too? And ultimately, my favorite thing in the world is when I just get unsolicited messages from people being like, I did it, like I got, I love what the book can actually do that for people who are do-it-yourselfers and really want to make that next step and simplify it in a way that they actually see those returns sooner than later, because I'm a massive advocate for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is hard enough as it is, and small
Right.
businesses and building those. So the more that we can make things easy and automated and kind of get it right the first time in terms of messaging, all that kind of stuff, the more we can get people into that selling zone, the faster, the better for everybody. And so that's my favorite thing in the world, is those testimonials of people being like, I did it. I put $600 in and got $6,000 out. I love that.
I think it offers just as much for people with a marketing title who have landed in a new job. And, you know, you and I have both been there. You have to very quickly acclimatize yourself to the business, and you're bombarded with people saying, especially let's say if the marketing role has been empty before you.
Yes.
So, they're coming out of the woodwork. Give me this, give me that, give me this. I think allows someone to say, I'm going to provide some discipline around this. It can, you know, be done still with making some of those people, happy and accommodating them, because you outline, maybe in the few hours a week zone, it's not too much.
Mhm.
But I think it could allow someone who, let's remember, is still on probation
Yes.
by the time they're finishing it, give some very concrete things that they've accomplished and that are already improving the company's marketing and hopefully being noticed in the sales pipeline by you know in pretty short order.
Yeah. Well, and that's the idea too, whether you're just getting started or say you've just been tasked, come up with a digital strategy. Even if you know the world, this actually just gives you that here are the steps I'm going to take, and here are the numbers I'm going to measure to see the success of this strategy. And a lot of bosses love that if you actually have some measurable numbers. So kind of wherever you are in your career, or whether you're doing it yourself, whatever the case may be, I do really try to get very specific in terms of here are the important numbers that are your baselines that you want to be tracking to actually see if this is a success. So it's a really great way for them to also be able to show very quickly, oh, hey, these numbers are up, these numbers are up, these numbers are up, and they can, hopefully make their boss happy sooner than later.
Right.
Mhm.
Marketing has many parts of it that you need to be constantly attending to.
Mhm.
However, especially in the juncture of a company, making this shift, opening a new line of product, or like I said, a new important person stepping into the marketing function. I have to tell you, without norms like what you've laid out here as being a list, the thing I'm frankly more afraid of is the waste that happens. I see time and time again or I will hear time and time again from someone who's been burned. Let's say they're a CEO of a small company and they say, we brought a person in, said they knew how to do marketing. And, you fill in the blank. There's a tale of woe that goes on, and it has a very large price tag on it. And this person has to be let go, severance, the whole bit. And the company's no further ahead, right? Time has been wasted. I want that to be avoided. And there aren't that many playbooks out there for being able to go and say, all right, yes, there will be mistakes made, but at least if you go this way, you can't go too far wrong, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is your core. This is your core. This is where you can begin, know your success. And if you want to get fancy after that, feel
Right.
free.
Go
That
chase
so fun.
TikTok ads, on day 31.
Exactly. Yeah.
Katrina, if people want to find out how to get the book, or they want to find out more about you and Ethical Digital, how can they do that?
They can go to katrinagerman.com. I have a whole section there for the action tracking book. And if you would like to directly go and check out our agency, if you're kind of I don't want to do it, or I need a partner in this process, we got your back. So our agency is ethicaldigital.ca. Not only, we definitely focus on the funnels. Sales is very important, conversion rates, that sort of thing. But we're also really interested in kind of taking things to the next level and making sure that a lot of the stuff we're creating is accessible for people with different disabilities, from different literacy levels, that sort of thing. And so we're really kind of, if you do want to work with us, we can help you take it to that next level too, of ensuring that you're connecting with and being as accessible as possible online. So we work with people, or we do it for you. There's a lot of different ways we can work together, but feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions.
That's fantastic. And thank you again. To the listener, I want to thank you for listening. I bet you've gotten a lot of value out of what Katrina has said. And I encourage you to check out the book. And if you have someone that is at this point, please mention the episode to them so that they can get a chance to follow the actions that should hopefully give them some traction and get them on the right footing. And I hope that you found at least one thing that can help you make your funnel even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.